Here we are, guys, answering the top questions we get from students who have officially graduated the program, and we compiled a list. So the first one we get is, what if clients have a bald patch above the ear? How do you draw that? And how do you place the deposits, pattern, or whatsoever? So specifically, how do you draw this, Jonathan, around the ear?
So if it's going to be around the ear, what you want to do is determine, obviously, like where the sideburns are, you know, and then you want to make sure that, you know, look at the other side, see if he's got hair on the other side. Nice. And just try to match the other side, especially if they're not thinning on that side, and then you just kind of come around the ear. You don't want to bring the hair into the top of the ear. You want to give it a little space in there and have it come all the way down to the neckline.
Right, so it's like a fine balance be going too low into the ear and too high, right? Because you don't want to be up here per se, right?
Yes.
All right,
it's guys. A lot of it's common sense,
yeah.
You know, but that's going to come with more years of practice and different clients, you know, ethnicities, and you guys will catch on.
And their preference. So why don't we recommend for new students to use a 0.30 millimeter diameter or anything wider than that? Why is that, Jonathan?
So most students have a problem, you know, manipulating the pressure. So what we want to do is, you don't want to use a bigger needle because it's obviously going to give bigger dots. So it's more about the attack into the skin. It's all about, you know, the needles that we use, you know, we've gone accustomed to them. So we know exactly the depth, the pressure, what's needed. And I can actually work with a bigger needle and make a smaller point with it. It's all how you use the needle. That's what it comes down to.
Right, guys. When you guys are starting off, as Jonathan's saying, you have a more probability that you're going to make bigger dots, small dots. You're going to be very inconsistent, and you're going to make a 0.30 look like a 0.45 or 0.50. It's going to be inconsistent with the size of your hair follicle, which is why we recommend the size we recommend. Another question we get is, I'm interested in learning another art form of PMU or pigmentation, like microblading, which is basically replicating the strokes in the eyebrow. Do you think I should tackle this after completing the SMP course with us? What is your recommendation on that?
I highly recommend, you know, learning the basics, learning the SMP before you even get into other SMP fields, you know what I mean? So you want to, you know, master what has been, you know, 12, 13 years of SMP out there, so all the information is out there. So learn what's the basics of SMP, and then you could kind of teeter off into your own worlds.
What would you say, maybe what, like about 50 clients maybe or so? Then they could try to, right at the end of the day, what we're explaining to you guys is the comfortability. How comfortable do you feel explaining it? How comfortable you feel completing the procedure? And as Jonathan mentioned, when you are ready, then you could venture out into learning other forms of PMU or pigmentation. So another question we get, even for people who are either already taken the course or halfway through the course or want to get started, is how quickly can I complete the online training course? Obviously, our in-person course is 3 days. Recently, we had a student who completed it within 6 days, and they were coming home at 10 o'clock at night and putting in 6 hours a day, but not everyone could do that, right, Jonathan? So what would you think you say the ideal time frame? I know we do have that 12-week practice session where we walk you through that syllabus, but what would you think would be the ideal time frame?
So everybody learns at their own speed, you know, and you know, take the modules, you work through them, you know what I mean? You try to master one, but even me, you know, after 13 years, I feel like I've mastered it, but I'm always willing to grow more. So like, take your time, learn each module, and just keep leveraging, you know, all the tools that we're giving you guys.
That's right, guys. In the resources there, we do have that 12-week practice calendar. Make sure you leverage there. So at that worst, you have 12 weeks to complete everything. All right, another question we got was, I understand that the spectrum of shades, the pigment shades, are used to tailor the client's SMP procedure depending on the client's preference. But is it something that you eventually develop an eye for?
Yes, so with the inks, the way we teach you guys is it's elementary. I mean, this inks, you can't really screw it up. So it's a protocol that you're gonna use. And after maybe, you know, 20 clients, you're eventually just gonna be able to pick it up with your eye. You're gonna say, okay, this guy's a color 20 with 15 drops, or you know, this guy's a 30. So it's all gonna be just come natural with you. Right. So don't stress out and think, okay, the colors, you know, it's gonna be really complicated and complex. It's not. It's very elementary, and you guys will learn this.
That's right, guys. We put together a full method and a process for you to be 100% accurate every time. From the resources we have, there's a lot of practices, and making sure that you're taking notes so that you can build a database and have fun with it. If you're in the train out in the city and you see a client, start to think about what color would you use on this client. Another question we get is, what is the best strategy to build a portfolio?
So we get this question a lot. You know, a lot of students, you know, new to the game, and they don't know where to get the clients from, or you know, how to build up their social media presence. So we always recommend, you know, working on family and friends. You know what I mean?
Inner circle.
In the inner circle. Keep it. You know, if you screw them up, they're not going to rat you out. So
That's right.
keep it in the family and the friends. And
that's how you start.
That's
how
I
I started. That's
yeah.
how every barber, every
Exactly.
PMU artist. I mean, this method has been pioneered forever, right?
Yes. Exactly.
And that's right, we're gonna take it a step further, right? Because we're gonna give you a little task to do. We want you to write down 3 to 10 clients that you know who are balding, right? Who can use this type of procedure. And then we want you to write 3 to 10 clients who you know are referring you or could refer you someone that they know that could use this procedure. Do all clients heal the same?
So that question is no. No, all clients do not heal the same. You can have some clients that can stay red for 3-4 days, even up to a week. You can have some clients, you know, obviously the next day they can go back to their normal lives and no redness and they're 100% healed.
Absolutely, guys. Now, how do you determine that? A lot of times every client is different, right? Like you said, the way they come. If you have a client who has rosacea, which is pink skin, or psoriasis, chances are they're gonna take a little bit longer. Or if someone who has fair skin is gonna take a little bit longer. But at the end of the day, what we want you to do is avoid or minimize unnecessary trauma. That means going into the epidermis layer of the skin, right, Jonathan?
Yes.
Because you can cause more drama by that, and which means it's gonna take longer to heal.
Exactly. You know, sun exposure, you know what I mean? There's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
Follow the aftercare, exactly.
All right, guys. Now, next question we get, and I'm sure every student wants to know, is like, how do you know if your deposit is perfect or not?
So that's a good question because not all skins are the same. So you'll do a first session, that client will come back maybe a week or 2 later, and you'll notice maybe 60-70% of your dots have disappeared, and you only got 20% that stayed. So this is going to be a lot of trial and error for you guys at home. So when you're working on these clients, you'll see the clients come back, and you'll know, okay, my pressure was good here, my pressure wasn't good here. So that's going to help you develop and become a better artist in the future.
That's right, guys. Remember, leverage that patch test. And guess what? We're going to take it a little step further right now. If you deposit pigment, right, so you have a hole and that cavity there is being filled by blood, and then you clean it and there's still more blood, meaning there's no pigment in there, chances are you went too light or you hit the epidermis. Now, conversely, if you go too deep and you start to see the pigment deposit looking bigger than the hair follicle, that's a good indicator that you went too deep, especially if there's a silhouette around it. What is the needle doing when it's entering the skin? What is this magical thing that's happening?
So unlike the traditional tattoo, with scalp micropigmentation, it's not a dragging motion. The way the needle's going in, with tattooing, it's going 5 layers deep. With SMP, we're only going maybe a couple, 2 to 3 layers, depending on how much fat tissue, how much dry skin's on the head. So what the needle's doing is actually puncturing little holes into the scalp, and then needles kind of just going in there through the stem of the needle. Right. So as soon as the hole's being punctured, needle's being pushed into the skin. So that's giving you the deposit. So that's why we recommend using like needles with 3 points on them, because that helps you
rupture the skin.
Rupture the skin. It helps you actually push the ink into there.
Right.
Unlike the one needle is actually just poking holes, but since the ink of the needle is sitting on the stem of the needle, so it's not giving that chance for the needle, the ink, sorry, it's not giving a chance for the ink to actually go into the skin. So 3-point micro needle.
That's it, guys. Remember, as this needle's coming in, it's making that cavity wider, especially as it's staying in there, punctuate, pushing that skin in and coming out, and eventually that pigment will get locked in there and just jammed inside.
Yes.
Is it better to use the lowest setting in the voltage output?
So personally, the lowest setting, I don't really like the lowest setting too much, because what it does, it gives a needle, it kind of flickers back and forth. If you're doing the low setting, the needle's just going like this. The faster the needle's going, the more it's going to have a nice firm and stamina into the skin.
Easier chances for you to rupture the skin properly.
Exactly, yes.
All right, guys. So here's a big question we get all the time from students. What does a perfect first session look like?
So that question is going to be more individualized for each student. So you could go online right now and you could look at somebody's treatment and say, okay, that's the best treatment. But then you look at somebody else's work and you'd be saying, that's even better. So, that's going to be coming down to more personal preference and choices. But obviously, you want that realism effect. You want to look at somebody on the street and say, that guy has a nice hairline. but it doesn't look like SMP, and that would be the perfect session.
That's right, guys. Remember to leave yourself space between those deposits, at least 3 times the distance of the client's existing hair follicles.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, the SMP industry is growing and it's evolving, as it should be. So one of the questions we get from a student is combining strokes with pointillism. Is that okay? Is that ideal? If so, when?
So that's like kind of a new water territory thing going on right now. So I know back in years ago, I know some artists personally that's been doing the strokes, you know, and that it works for them. You know, that's their model. So everybody's different, but unless there's, you know, if they got proven track record of this actually working, then continue with that. So.
Right. So guys, remember, first make sure you can master that pointillism before you're ready to try to master a new technique like a stroke.
Exactly.
All right, Jonathan. So obviously our course is filled with many lessons on how to leverage the needle. But what do you think is the missing piece right now when it comes to students? How can they leverage the needle more effectively?
Leveraging the needle. You know, a lot of practicing and just you know, don't be afraid to, you know, practice on people. Practice on your friends and family, you know, and learn the pressure manipulation, learn the stretching, you know, and this kind of learn at your own pace. You know, don't try to look at other artists and say, I want to be like that fast, I want to be like this guy. Just learn at your own speed and you'll develop your own skills.
Right, and leverage the tools and the resource we gave you guys, right? We talk about using a smaller needle, right, to do use for the hairline, making sure the needle length is fully extended out. Things like that are going to help you, and like Jonathan mentioned, make sure you're practicing so you can see how to leverage these needles appropriately. How can a student utilize the pigment shades more effectively?
So what we, you know, in our class, what we do is we like to teach the students to utilize different colors, different shades, and it's not necessarily the different color, it's just the softening of colors. So like on a male hair, a lighter shade, yeah. So with say a male hairline, what you're doing is going nice and full and dark here, and as you come up towards the hairline, drop the shade a little bit lighter so it kind of feathers and trickles down there. And that's going to help you, you know, get that experience and the skills to give a nice, soft, subtle, natural hairline effect.
Right, and the same thing for the side temples as well, right?
Exactly. The whole hairline, even the neckline, bring that softness all the way around. If you have, you know, some clients want the neckline done, so, but most people, they're going to want the front and the sides done.
All right. So another thing we get from students is products like Visocaine or any of these things that can basically remove the redness. What is your thought process on that? Is it ideal? What do you think?
With the Visocaine, we do use it here at Gerow Hair Inc. And but we use it sparingly. You don't want to oversaturate the skin with it. And
talk about trauma, right? That
exactly.
can cause unnecessary trauma, and the redness can last longer.
Exactly. A lot of people don't realize that, but this Visocaine stuff, once you spray it on, you got to wipe it off. You don't just leave it on there and work through it. So once you spray it, you should actually wipe it and then continue working through there.
Right. Make sure you use as directed any product you're using, especially when you're rupturing the skin. So, Jonathan, we're always looking for ways for our students to save money, right? We know how important it is, but they need to practice. So what are some of the things that they can use when it comes to needles and pigment so that they can practice and maybe practice at a budget?
So in the, you know, the SMP industry right now, a lot of things are getting more expensive. So what you can do is you can actually buy really cheap tattoo needles, tattoo ink, and then you can actually use that for practice. I mean,
that's right. You can get like a whole job for like 10, 15 bucks.
Yep.
Like Jonathan said, use that to practice. Because really when you're working on a melon or any type of synthetic skin, you're not going to be able to notice the difference if the pigment is dark or light.
No.
So, Jonathan, one of the tools that we have in our SMP kit is a protractor, right? How fortunate or how ideal is the protractor for people having issues with angles? We show them how to draw the hairline for the women where it leans forward, and the men like yours and mine are going to lean back. What is the protractor for? How can they leverage that? I
mean, protractors, it's good, you know, all hairlines, no one's got like a perfect hairline, so it's good for using the protractor for a reference point.
Right.
It's not something you're going to want to use every time you get a client in the door. Yeah. You can use that to find, you know, maybe like where the center points or where the angles are, and it helps you, it gives you guidance, but don't use that like 100% of the time.
Right, right. So just make sure, for example, this is a male, and his hairline shouldn't be leaning forward, it should be leaning back.
Exactly.
Check that protractor to make sure.
Yep.
All right, so another question Jonathan would say is, what is the perfect needleless syringe so they can draw the water? What would you think?
So the syringes, there's different syringes you can use out there, and they get really detailed. You know, there's ones at, you know, 0.05, 0.10. You can use, you know, I would suggest getting that.
Right,
There's
so
clients.
you can see the difference, the 1, 2, 3, all the way through.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's other needles out there, guys, that goes from 10 to 20, but they don't list the integers. Get it so you can see everything.
Yeah.
So Jonathan, we have out there students who are about to get starting right now, and they want to know, what is your #1 advice you would give them?
My advice would be keep it conservative, and you know,
Less is always more, right?
less is always more. Exactly.
Remember, guys, you can always add, but how difficult is it to take off? At that point, you need laser.
You
right?
need laser removal. Yes.
All right, so
Yep.
avoid these things, guys. Take your time. It's okay doing 4 or 5 sessions, right, Jonathan?
Exactly. Yeah. Don't we do them in 2 or 3 sessions. If you have to do 4, 5, 6 sessions, especially starting off, do that. You know, I mean, play it safe than sorry. So.
That's right. Leave yourself space, guys. Disposable grip. Is it a good idea? I know you don't use it,
Yeah.
but we've had from time to time. What do you think about disposable grip?
The disposable grip, it does help with the memory muscle in your wrist. You know, if you guys suffering with pain out there, the grip kind of it tricks the muscles in your hand to use different muscles, especially when you're working. I actually do like it once in a while use it, but it's all personal preference.
Right. Best way to find out is use it while you're practicing. So Jonathan, one of the questions we get from students is, how do I go in different angles without creating a stroke?
Good question. So what you want to do is actually master the position. This is the basic, stationary position of going in and out. Think of it like a sewing machine. But you always want to pivot and move. So do a circle, the size of a quarter, move to the next area, do the size of a quarter. So always pivot and move, and then you can start, going down and doing different angles.
Right. It happens sometimes, guys, you tend to kind of go in and you're dragging the pen without going to the next deposit area. So take your time. As Jonathan said, think of a sewing machine, and your hand position is going to be key.